Excellent. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. I know it's quite a shocker to come back after last week to this week with all that's expected of us. So we are recording this conversation, which is just a regular Zoom. So we're going to actually be able to, if you have any questions, you can put them in the chat box. It's not like a full formal presentation Zoom. So put your questions in the chat box. We're going to quickly go through the agenda. And again, you can ask questions in real time via chat. And then I'll, at the end, try to answer as many questions as I can. So Joe Bishop, Executive Director, Center for the Transformation of Schools, UCLA. Honored to have you with you during the lunch hour. And I want to actually allow my other colleagues to introduce themselves so you can hear a different voice before I actually jump in. Dr. Rodeo, Dr. Ryu, Dr. Bristol.
Yes, thank you, Dr. Bishop.
Yeah.
Yes, hi, my name is Dr. Jacqueline Rodeo. I'm the Director of Business Administration for UCLA Center for the Transformation of Schools. Thank you so much for joining us today, everybody.
Let's go to, go ahead, sorry.
I can't start my video, but I am here. Travis Bristol, Associate Professor here at UC Berkeley.
Thanks, Dr. Bristol. Let's go to Dr. Ryu.
Afternoon, everyone. Ish Ryu. I'm the Assistant Superintendent at the Marin County Office of Education, focused on the CCEE, and it's a pleasure to be with you all today on this important project.
Terrific. And Geneva Summer, Communications Director.
Hi, everybody. Geneva Sum, Director of Communications, UCLA Center for the Transformation of Schools.
Terrific. Okay, so REACH. Today's informational call has been organized to help you understand the drivers for the creation of the Race, Education, and Community Healing Statewide Network, or REACH, really the why behind it, and to provide an overview of the expectations, timeline, and requirements for all potential applicants. Applications are due a week from this Friday. That's December the 8th. Again, December the 8th, our applications are due, and we just extended the deadline because I know a number of you were asking for extensions to get signatures and had questions, and this is just an incredibly busy time if you're working in schools. The application, I just want to, rest assured, I want to let you know it's a very straightforward application. It's available via Google form. And I'm going to jump now into the next slide here. Give me one second. So let's go back, Geneva, sorry. Let's go back to the overview. Okay. So we're partnering, you heard his voice, Dr. Bristol from UC Berkeley Graduate School of Education is a partner in this work with us. So it's UCLA and UC Berkeley are the lead entities as part of this work. And our primary charge is to develop alternatives to suspensions and engage schools, orgs, and communities to create racially and culturally centered learning environments, ultimately to reduce racial disparities, exclusionary discipline practices, and improve school climate for all students, especially students that historically have been excluded at higher rates. That's students experiencing the foster system, students experiencing homelessness, students of color, and students with disabilities, and LGBTQ plus youth. The UCLA Civil Rights Project actually just released a study, which I think is pretty timely if you haven't seen it. The title of it is Lost Instruction Time in California Schools, the Disparate Harm from Post-Pandemic Punitive Suspensions. Dan Lowson and colleagues conducted this analysis and found that there's over 600,000 days of lost instruction during the 2021-2022 school year, and that foster, Black, and homeless youth and students with disabilities were more likely to be suspended out of school more than any other student groups. And these are patterns that were prevalent prior to the pandemic. And kind of the why behind this work is you see the last bullet here. So clearly there's a culture that's highly problematic that's impacting our young people. But willful defiance as a law has been used as justification for schools to suspend students historically in California. However, Governor Newsom recently signed legislation banning suspending students from TK through 12 for willful defiance as a means for justification. And as you see in this last bullet here, Senator Skinner, who's been a champion for moving away from punitive policies, recently championed legislation that will go into effect as of July 1, 2024. So we see REACH really, which will be led, at least the professional network by Dr. Ryaru, as a critical testing ground for promoting alternatives to suspensions for our state. And more importantly, to give educators, schools, and school systems new tools for promoting healthy relationships between students and adults. So that's the primary charge. I wanted to set up the why it existed. So again, REACH is really a companion to the willful defiance legislation that was just adopted for all grades in California. Next slide, please. Okay, eligibility. We've had a lot of questions about eligibility. There's a number of nonprofits that are very interested in this work, which I think is really, really exciting. However, we're asking that the main fiscal agents for this grant be school districts and school systems and county offices of education, including charter schools, which are all eligible to apply. Higher education partners, community-based organizations, and nonprofits are encouraged to apply together, again, with LEAs to be considered for a REACH grant. But community-based organizations, unfortunately, can't apply alone to do this work. Again, school districts or county offices must be the primary fiscal sponsor for this grant. Next slide, please. Okay, so the application requirements are pretty straightforward, and they're all available online. You've seen the template. I'm not going to go through each bullet, but the budget must not exceed $25,000. And we're also asking, based on the work that we've done before with MTSS, is really kind of a testing ground for leading communities of practice. We're trying to make this a light lift, but also asking folks who are applying to come up with a theory of action going into the work, so we understand why you are committed to this work and why your district is committed to the work. Dr. Bristol, Dr. Ryaru, do you want to talk about the application requirements or add a little, add any footnotes that you think folks should know?
Afternoon, everyone. Thanks so much, Dr. Bishop. The one nuance I might add is very much to the point that was raised about the theory of action, is that in addition to what gets described in the application, once folks come on board and participate in the network, we'll also have opportunities to revisit that and think about the work that you want to do moving forward. And it might be that as the project gets off the ground, there's a need to revisit that and make slight adjustments, and that's absolutely appropriate.
Thanks, Dr. Ryaru. But yeah, this is a purposely, again, very straightforward application. We're trying not to make it a huge thing. Let's go to the next slide, please. And I will say that for folks who are trying to get signatures, actually, let me just add this. So we required the board chair signatures and the superintendent signatures as part of this process. I know that's been a hang up for some folks. If you're running into some unique issues, please let us know. Please email me or any member of the team. We're going to share contact information a little bit. But again, that was very purposeful, that there's more of a system buy-in. It's not just individual school sites. Dr. Bristol, that was a great recommendation to involve the board in this work. Okay, let's get to the timeline. All timelines were made to be adjusted, but this is in a perfect world, this is what happens. Applications are due a week from this Friday, again, December the 8th. We are going to notify you by December 22nd. Our grantee contracts will be finalized by the end of January, and then we'll actually release funds by the end of the school year. So this grant timeline, it's quick, and we recognize it's really about a half a school year when all is said and done. However, it's taken a significant amount of time to actually get funds from the state so we could start the work. So we appreciate your patience. I know it's odd to start a program mid-year, We also have hopes, because this is 2 years worth of funding, that if it's a really strong cohort that we can continue next year with this same group of folks want to stay together. Next slide, please. Okay, selection criteria. Let me walk these through a little bit. So grantees will be selected based on the following criteria. 1, a demonstrated commitment within the school system to prevent and promote alternatives to out-of-school suspension for historically marginalized groups. I think a really explicit focus, and also identifying groups and really your why behind this work, and why leadership within your system is committed to doing this. A clear and unaddressed need within your community. 2 or 3, I should say, a willingness to share and discuss school climate data. We'll get into school climate data requirements next. We're also looking for a diverse set of districts and sites by geography, student demography, and size of the district. So we're not looking for, say, all urban or all rural sites. We're trying to get really as almost a proof of concept. Here's a representative sample of schools and school systems who are committed to this work. And as we're thinking about this work, since it's a one-time investment from the state, a promise for scalability. So we're showing that not only is there a need, but we're learning from schools and school systems who are partnered in this work. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, post-award requirements for funded grantees. We're asking really for you to open your doors to a large degree as we think about your work and your data, and kind of really a sense of vulnerability around the work and humility. But we're asking to draw upon existing evidence at the school site, district, or CBO in partnership with the school or LEA. And Dr. Rairu will be leading these virtual convenings. Again, they're virtual starting in January. And here's the dates. They're all lunchtime from 12 to 1. Dr. Rairu has been leading the SEED network for the last 2 years, which is a set of schools, mostly school sites that are implementing MTSS, and we're building upon that model. Dr. Rairu, I don't know if you want to share kind of your thinking on the work for the community of practice and the lunchtime convenings.
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. I think at the highest level, we're focused on the improvement process over time. And so folks that have been exposed to either improvement science or implementation science will see some themes that are similar. We'll be looking at some things that will be the same across projects. Obviously, everyone will be collecting data. Everybody will be looking at impact, but there's also going to be recognition that there's going to be differences in context and in the size of the system and the number of students and the resources that are available. And so we'll have time during these network meetings to troubleshoot, to share ideas, and to support one another. And I think most importantly, find where folks need it, additional information, resources, research that can help folks get to even greater impact this year, and then to Dr. Bishop's point, potentially out in future years as well. Dr. Bishop, anything else you think I should spotlight that I didn't speak to already?
I mean, maybe Dr. Rairu talking about kind of the sequencing, sure, and even thinking about empathy interviews and a progression of work, and acknowledging that we know this work, that this is years of work. This is not 6 virtual meetings. Yep. But maybe if you could speak to that, and Dr. Bristol, I think you might want to say something to that as well.
Yeah, happily. I'll kick that off, and then, like you said, pass it over to Dr. Bristol as well. So from a sequencing standpoint, typically what we would look at in that very first meeting is time to revisit the plans that were submitted by the participants. So folks are going to come with a theory of action. It's going to be a chance for us to take that theory of action and think about turning it into an aim statement. Again, with opportunities to make revisions based on real-time implementation. We would also sort of take stock of the practices that are in place at the school district or the school, and particularly any practices that contribute to exclusion or practices that would be supportive of helping diverse groups of students stay in school. We would also, during that first meeting, look at some research on this topic and prepare ourselves for a second meeting where we might generate some questions for empathy interviews, and those questions and those empathy interviews could take place with both students and families to better understand what it's like for the students and families in the system on a daily basis. Every single participant in the network would, after that second meeting, be rolling out some type of project. They would be rolling out some type of initiative. And we would be asking the participants to come to the meetings with what it is that they're learning. And again, focusing a lot on implementation. By the time we got to meeting 5 and 6, we'd be looking at measuring implementation outputs, measuring outcomes, and looking at lessons learned. And that final meeting, when we look at the lessons learned, we would be thinking about, as a group and individually, what could be shared with a local school district board or other board members, and engaging in questions around the capacity that the district or the school has to continue to do this work, and any areas of support that might be needed, and again, to position for the next year of work, whatever that might look like. Dr. Bishop, I think I pass it back to you or Dr. Bristol with that.
No, that's a great summary. Dr. Bristol.
So thank you, Joe. So the one thing that I'll just add regarding the signatures, and I know that it is indeed, may feel onerous, but I think one of our theory of actions is that to get at real school transformation, because schools are connected to districts and superintendents get their marching orders from the board, we would like for the board and the superintendent to be on board so that schools have cover to do their most ambitious and transformative work. And so it is indeed, we know that it'll probably take some time, but we want schools to feel like they have cover to do real work. And we want superintendents and school boards to know of the transformative work that's taking place.
And there was a question about the number of sites, districts. We're expecting 5 to 7 districts to participate, which is dependent upon state funding, and some foundations might be interested in funding the group as well. But that's our target number, and we hope this group will grow and that we will secure more state funding to allow for it to grow. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay. Data requirements. All grantees will be required to develop data collection and research plans in partnership with our center and Berkeley, which will happen in the first quarter of next year, which is in just a few weeks, which is hard to believe. As part of the development of plans, grantees will commit to providing relevant student level data that, again, is de-identified data from the time point before and after the initiative for up to 2 years to allow for an assessment of possible changes. And the markers that we're looking at are 1, suspensions, that's in school, out of school, expulsions, discipline referrals, referrals to special education, absenteeism rates, and then we're also giving you the option for one additional optional data point that will be determined locally by the grantee. And our hope is that this work aligns to your LCAP. Also, if folks are part of implementing community schools, you're using some of these markers already. So we're trying to make these, these are more often, we say, symptoms of the system, not indicators of by all means, everything in terms of school climate, but they're really important. But we just want to be very transparent that when we go back to the state and the legislature, we have to be able to say, here's our baseline, here's where we're starting, here's what we're seeing, here's where we hope to go. Folks want to add to that? Ish, Travis? Okay. All right, let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, so these are the key dates. The 29th of January, March 22nd, June 7th, in terms of this school year key submission dates. Let's go to the next slide, please. Okay, budget template. Let's go to Dr. Rodeo, and then we'll wrap up after we talk budget if folks have questions.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Bishop. Good afternoon, everybody. And thank you again so much for joining us today for the Reach Network information session. My name is Jacqueline Rodeo. I am the Director of Business Administration for the Center for the Transformation of Schools at UCLA. And my role is essentially to ensure the application process on the budget and finance side, as well as the disbursement of funds, goes smoothly for our applicants and our subcontractors. So there are 3 items that the finance team and I will be collecting from you. One is the budget template, which I will be going over shortly. Second is the budget narrative or the budget justification. Third is the invoice. We don't need the invoice right now. We will be needing this down the road when you are selected as a recipient. So let's go ahead and take a look at the budget template here. So I've already received a few emails. Again, thank you regarding the budget. Please keep in mind that from the time we received all of the items, as we process the paperwork with our business office and our accounts payable department, the processing time can take up to 60 days or longer, depending on how fast the accounts payable team are processing vendor invoices. So our last project that we just wrapped up with the Orange County Department of Education, we had over 30 subcontractors, including school sites and universities across the US. The total amount of disbursement for that particular project is $2.4 million. And our accounts payable team took a bit longer to process the payment and cut the check. So I'm bringing this up to let you know that there is no guarantee of releasing the check within the typical 30-day period. Okay. So on top of the budget, please do include your LEA, fiscal agent. There are times when our finance team are reviewing the budget and they may have questions. So please put their name and contact information on there. You can also put your CBO or budget administrator, which is completely fine. The budget template is fairly easy to complete. It's very straightforward. As Dr. Bishop mentioned, this whole application process is very straightforward. The rows are separated, so each school site can put the total amount of salaries, whether it falls under the certificated salaries, which I've seen a lot of project directors, principal investigators, program director, whoever is leading the project will be putting their salaries on this section. And classified salaries, I've seen admin support, program coordinators, whoever is supporting you on the admin side is typically on this section. There's also total benefits section, books and supplies. For services and operating expenditures, this section is typically where you can include consultants or other subcontractors who will help oversee the project with you or help support data analysis from focus group, if that is what you have in mind. I don't see consultants added very often, but I have seen a school site hire a consultant from the previous project as a research assistant to help with data collection for their focus group. So the amount is on here for services and other operating expenditures. So as far as the indirect cost rate or F&A, facilities and administrative costs, which typically pays for the overhead, building usage, utilities, infrastructure costs, this is where school sites would put their indirect cost rate. And if you're unsure what the IDR is or the IDC for your school, please check the California Department of Education website. There is a list of approved rates for each schools. Now I checked and they only have the 2023-2024 approved rates at this time. So please go ahead and use that one. And if you don't have an ICR for your school, then please just leave that section blank. Okay. There are also 2 columns here that states FY fiscal year 2024-2025 and fiscal year 2025 to 2026. Now, I know the timeline states distribution of funds in the beginning of the new fiscal year, which is July 1st, 2024. However, I have gotten a word last night, and this is actually great news, that there's a good chance that the funds will be distributed much sooner than July 1st. So this will move our fiscal year to the current one that we are right now, which is a 2023 and 2024. So my team will update the budget template to reflect this change. And I wanted to point out that I've also gotten an email asking about the second column under proposed expenditure. And this is because there's another opportunity, just as Dr. Bishop has mentioned earlier, for schools to apply for a second grant of $25K for the following year, I think, which is absolutely fantastic. Next slide, please. Okay, great. So the next two slides, this is the budget justification, will help you complete the budget narrative. It has all of the descriptions you need to be able to explain in detail what each item requires. So for instance, let's have a look at the senior and key personnel section. So if you look at the budget template, this is where your certificated salaries would fall under. Who is leading the project director, principal investigator, program director. You will put their name, their title, percentage of effort, and salary rates. And the same with the other significant contributors. These are where your classified salaries would fall under. Again, name, title, percentage of effort, and salary rates. And we also do require the total benefits, any travel expenses, supplies and services, consultants, F&A, and the total amount on the bottom. Again, this is just to help you create the budget narrative. Next slide, please. So this two slide is just a budget justification form, and I hope this is helpful. This template is coming from our accounts payable team. And this is also the same template that we used from our previous seed grantees, which worked out really well from OCDE. Next slide, please. Okay, so the last invoice, this is when you submit the invoice to us. Again, you don't need this right now. We will be asking for this invoice after you have been chosen as a recipient. Here is a sample of the invoice, again, from our AP department. Please feel free to use this invoice and complete the subrecipient section. It's just transferring information or the figures, right, from the budget template to this document, putting what you have originally budgeted and the actual cost. I've already gotten questions about the performance period and billing period. A school site did ask if the year could be the same, and the answer is yes. So the performance period would be 2023 to 2024, and the billing period would be the same thing, 2023 and 2024. And please make sure your LEA, CBO, CFO, any authorized designee signs and put the date on the bottom of the document. So once we have your full application along with the items I've mentioned, we can then go ahead and submit this for processing to get your funds. Okay. And if you need help or have any questions about the budget justification, please do reach out to me. I'll be putting my email on the chat box. And if you'd like to meet via Zoom or chat on the phone, I'm available as well.
Geneva, let's go to the last slide. Thank you, Dr. Rodio, with our contact info. Okay. So we encourage everyone to reach out to us if you have any questions. Look, we recognize $25,000 is not a lot of money. However, to be part of this network and to be part of this kind of cutting edge work that the country is looking for guidance on, we hope you'll take the dive with us, and we hope this is going to lead to a much larger effort, and for you to be part of this first cohort would be pretty exciting. And I just want to add to the fact that as you're writing down everybody's email, so we were part of phase 2 for California MTSS, California multi-tiered systems of support. The suspension rates and school climate patterns that we saw at the beginning pre-pandemic and now have not moved. In fact, to a large degree, the gaps or the differences between student groups have grown, the gaps have grown. We think this work that really calls out exclusionary practices and mindsets and systems are highly problematic, and that our schools need new tools and resources and partners, not just to point fingers, but to do the work. So we're really excited that Senator Skinner, I just want to say this again for folks who just joined, and the state have made this investment and are entrusting us together to do this work. And we know it is going to be extremely difficult. It has been difficult. Many of you have devoted your careers or professional life to this work. So I don't want you to think we're thinking it's going to be easy. However, we think this is the type of work that really needs to happen. And if you have any questions, again, please let us know. Let's open up the floor though. There's a lot of questions in the chat box. I'm trying to play catch up here.
Also, if folks want to come on video and
Yeah, it's okay.
yourself, if that's easier, I just changed the permissions. If you'd like to do that, feel free.
Yeah, video's a-okay. I'm gonna go backwards. So Joaquin, good to see your writing. It'll be mostly comprised of the grant recipients, and if others want to join as part of those applications, I mean, I the more the merrier, but I think we're trying not to make it so large that there's, it becomes harder to have more individualized conversations. I'm going back. Okay, along with that, what happens if the district board has a different lens when it comes? Ooh, now that's an issue, Juan. So Juan asked, what happens if the district board has a different lens when it comes to race education, community healing in the school I'm at? That is that's very much a common issue. And I think one for us to get in together, think about different levels of the system and understandings of race and education specifically. But I would say it's okay to put that in the application. However, you may not get board sign off, depending on what you say. So if you're having trouble navigating in that regard, I think you can reach back out to us, but we can also look at publicly available data to see what's happening. So if there's an unmet need, this seems like it could be a good opportunity for you. But that disconnect is, I think, a major issue for a lot of us. Okay, I'm trying to go backwards. There's our info. Questions, now that we see folks on video.
Feel free to unmute yourselves if you need assistance with that. I can help.
Does the work address the pervasive use of the N word in K-12?
Oh, yeah, that was my question. Does the work address the pervasive use of the N word in schools? Because I think a lot of kids, it's very diluted for them in the sense where I've had kids actually come up to me and say they thought the N word means hey bro or hey dude. And it's not, students unfortunately haven't been educated on the dehumanization and not seeing African Americans even as human beings, and looking at the work that's going to be done here. Like, that's one of the things, the major things I think I wonder is it going to be addressed, because it's so rampant where kids are using it in classrooms, other students aren't comfortable, teachers don't know how to address it. They're only reaching out to administrators not really sure how to address it, and it's devastating for Black students, because being an African-American educator myself, working in K-12, and even just walking by students and hearing it, I just shows them how out of touch kids are with how damaging the word is. So I was just wondering, does this work even get to a point where they address that?
So what I'll say is one aspect of the work will be for the adults who are participating, or the schools who are participating, to think about what are the conditions in schools that push students to use to use the N-word. Mm-hmm. So what is it that's happening in schools that students feel like they can? And so I think there is a focus on students, but also the practices that adults are creating in schools that support students or don't support students, right? To feel like they can be in community with each other.
Okay. Thanks, Travis.
And Mr. Harris, thank you for your question. I think the empathy interview process too will hopefully surface some of these bigger issues that folks are scooting, around or avoiding as a space to learn. And to your point, it's like folks really don't know what to do or who's responsible, who's going to speak up. And a lot of administrators are afraid to speak up, and or teachers. So I think it is the job of this group to say, if you're in the if we're hearing this language and racist language and anti-Semitism and you name it, this is our plan of action, and this is what we think we should do. But ultimately, it has to be part of, to Travis's point, the system and the conditions that allow for it to happen. But also not to ignore it or make it seem like it's not a big deal, which it absolutely is, and it's highly problematic. Ms. Hicks. Ms. Hicks, I think you're muted.
I don't think we're getting your audio, Margaret. I see that you're not on mute, but we can't hear your audio. Feel free to type something in the chat if you'd like.
I know that's frustrating. Always happens right when you're trying to talk.
I have a question. I don't know if you can hear me. I'm Andrea Griego. I'm at Puente Charter Elementary School. My question is, so I don't know how competitive we'll be. We're a single site LEA, we're a charter elementary school, and we do have a high chronic absenteeism. And I know we have more students with disabilities, I think, compared to previous years, but otherwise we don't have, high suspension or other of the categories there. So I'm just wondering how competitive we would be, as an elementary school, and we're really probably going to be addressing, our chronic absenteeism is probably the worst here at our school, but nothing too dramatic in the other categories, if that makes sense. Would we be competitive, or are you looking for schools with like high, all the categories kind of hitting of the data points?
Yeah, no. Thank you, Ms. Griego. I think the I wouldn't worry about being competitive at this point. I worry about, we have to look at the whole state and determine kind of the best mix of schools and school systems. So if there's an unmet need and you want to be part of the group, I apply, but I wouldn't be discouraged saying, well, our need is not as good as this site or this district. If not to sound wishy-washy, but I'd say yes, apply. And also, that's not to say that for the second go around, if we're able to secure more state funds, we could say Puente is ready to go. So just to get in the system I think would be beneficial for all of us.
Okay, thank you.
And the day school question, that's a great question. I don't know. Can we get back to you, Ms. Hicks? Talk to Dr. Bristol, Dr. Rairu?
Okay.
I don't see why not, but to be honest with you, my head wasn't even there when we were working on the RFP, which probably happens. And Laura as well. Yeah, if we could, we'll get back to you ASAP though. Yes. Renisha Norwood Coleman.
Hi. I have a question, kind of circling back to the N word, but not just that. Like, I worked the year before last at a middle school in the Bay Area, and now I'm at a middle and high school. And what I'm finding is that the social emotional learning, right, is it's not necessarily lacking, but like I think people are forgetting that kids do not skip social emotional development. And a lot of kids have missed 2 years. And so like my school, we're charter, Aspire, and we've been looking at suspensions, we've been looking at attendance. Like we just received the community school grants. I'm actually the director, but we are looking at the social emotional part, because a lot of like our sixth graders, some of them are showing up and they're really like social emotionally fourth and fifth graders. And I saw this in middle school when I saw like eighth graders getting ready to go to high school. And I saw teachers desperately trying to prepare folks for ninth grade. And I was looking like these kids have missed the social emotional developmental learning and they need space to do it. And so we're looking at trying to use the funds to do programming related to that. Like I've been able to secure a program with Kaiser for free, but it's not for the whole school. And so I'm hoping to use funds from this to kind of partner with other groups to do it for the whole school. Because I'll talk to a student who maybe is using the N word, or something, and have a conversation about like why that's not appropriate, what's the history, whatever. And I realized that a lot of them, they just haven't had anybody to talk to with them. They haven't had time to really think about how that impacts people. Some of them don't know. Like as an African American woman, I talk about how it's not acceptable. I'm like, yeah, you're listening to it on music, but like everybody doesn't necessarily agree with the way that it's used. So just because you're using it or you hear it used, like, is that appropriate for school? Is that appropriate for professional? I'm talking to seniors going, if you use that at work, like you might be fired. Just, the different settings. And for me, it keeps coming back to that social emotional learning and development. And that a lot of kids have missed that. And so is that a way in which these funds could be used? And I'll take my question offline, my answer offline.
Yes. Ms. Norwood Coleman, I think we've seen across the state, even across the country, that young people are sometimes almost like in a fixed state pre-pandemic. They missed out on a lot, even a space to fail, a space for someone to listen to them or to be heard. So I think the work you're describing is absolutely critical, and it seems like a great fit for Reach. I don't know if folks want to add to that from our team from Berkeley and UCLA. But I definitely don't think you're alone in how you're trying to think through this. These are great questions. I say we just launch Reach today with this group. What do you say? Just avoid the whole grant process. Can you guys write a general letter that we can use and reach out to our board? Ms. Hicks, if you want to email me, yeah, I think you can use some of the language here that we have. We can also share the press release. Geneva, maybe you could share the press release now, because I think there's some good language in there, so folks don't have to like, yeah. Because it was one sentence in the budget that we had to expand upon a little bit. And we'll send a follow-up to everyone, but we can do that right now in real time. So we're going to get back to you on community day schools, alternative high schools. I think the bigger question is, as long as it's coming as as long as the fiscal agent is the district, then we encourage you to apply as an alternative high school and or community day schools is my thought right now. But Travis or Ish, do you have immediate thoughts on that? Just as long as, again, the main sponsor is an LEA.
Yeah, that makes sense. I agree. Yeah.
Okay. So everybody heard that. The fiscal sponsor has to be an LEA, but a community day school or alternative high school absolutely can apply under the umbrella of the district. Somebody raised, so I've seen a lot of folks join. You might have a different vision of talking about race in education compared to your board. How do you deal with that? I'd say do your best in this proposal. And if you're running into unique issues where you can't move forward because there's such a disagreement, say the next week when you're trying to complete this Google form, let us know. I know every community is a little different. When you start applying for grants, people get, can be challenging. Other questions?
Yeah, I have a real quick question. Zaya Vera, I'm from Oakland Unified School District. I'm in the process of writing the grant and the budget. And I'm assuming that there may be changes later on, but I can just put down the preliminary budget from where we are as we see it and knowing that there could be changes later on, correct? Awesome, thank you.
That's correct. Yep. The budgets are really parameters at this point. You might need to make adjustments. And Dr. Rory, again, is your main point of contact for any budgetary questions or contract questions. Okay. I'm seeing we are at 12, almost 10 to 1 Pacific time. Any members of the team want to add something that maybe this conversation is brought up for you, or that you want folks to make sure they understand before we close out? Okay. All right. Well,
Did you say members in just general, or are you talking about the people who are speaking? I'm sorry.
no, you're fine, Sarah. I was putting it back to the UCLA and Berkeley teams if they want to add anything, but we can go back to you and then we'll wrap up.
Well, I personally, if anybody, I personally, when I was sent the link to this, I was mesmerized by it because the district that I'm currently working in San Mateo, are trying to, like you were talking about the conditions that schools have, and with the use of hate speech, specifically the N-word, because I had shared my own personal experience, but also did a presentation about the N-word and like helping. And I went into classrooms, and the feedback that I got was it was definitely needed, but also afterwards, how kids came up to me and talked to me and like shook my hand, and just to be coming, because none of the kids that were, when we did the presentation, none of the kids had even realized the depth of what, even kids didn't even know what lynching was. Like lynching existed. And, that not only were African Americans hung, but they were also burned alive. And, once that reality of what it really meant sunk in with kids, you could just see now, and yet it didn't eliminate kids who saying the N-word, like, but I would say it's almost like a tier 1, 2, 3 system where 80% of the kids really grasp it. And you definitely still got some hardliners that, that's my word. And then I'm thinking of what you're saying about, the conditions and everything, but just seeing what the outcome of something like this and what it could do to really transforms kids. And you're transforming not just kids, but it's a societal link too, that we're fighting against the white supremacy culture, and that when I think of it, like it allows it to exist because white supremacy culture is so pervasive in public education in ways you can't see it and feel it's not tangible. So even able to bring that to the table, and like as part of high expectations for school districts to like, hey, this just cannot can't exist, but we need to be informing kids. And then these tier 3 kids that are still pushing it, how can we still support them for them to see the light, So I'm just fortunate that I feel like I was invited to this. So I hope eventually I'm included. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harris. And thank you for your question, honestly, for bringing this back to why we're here. So I really appreciate you. Okay, so I see one last question. oh, sorry, that's a direct message, but I will get back to you on another line. But I want to thank all of you for your time and interest in this work. You said you're mesmerized, Mr. Harris. I'm incredibly encouraged that many of you are on this call during the lunch hour when you're doing 500 other things. So just thank you. And again, please direct your questions to myself, Dr. Rairu, Dr. Bristol, and on the finance side and budget side, please go to Dr. Rodeo. We're here to serve, here to help you. And please apply by December the 8th. That's a week from this Friday, December the 8th. And if you have any questions, again, please reach out, but have a great afternoon. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Take care.
Joe, do you have 1 minute?
Yeah. And Jessica Womack, could you stay on real quick?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I was trying to reply, but I was worried I was going to leave you. So thank you for your question. We're asking that the main applicant be a district. However, the county office can be part of the application process. If that answers your question. We've had a lot of county offices saying, can we apply with these districts in these schools? We're asking that districts be the lead, however, that they, they're welcome to include you in that process. If there are other grants for REACH, which we hope we will secure more state money, it could just be a group of county offices as well. But we're asking mostly districts in this instance to apply.
And
Does that
would
answer your
we-
question?
Yes, and would a district or a school site that is a school for justice involved youth be
Got it.
eligible?
Yes, it would be.
Okay. Okay.
Like
Thank you.
as in a court school potentially?
Yes.
Okay. Yes.
Okay, so they would be eligible?
Yes, they would be.
Okay. Alrighty, thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay. Bye-bye. All right. Ish, can I call you back?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thanks, everybody. See you, Joaquin.
Hey, real quick, Mr. Bishop,
Yes.
and I think this went along with Womack's. That's crazy. It's coincidental. The virtual schools, and I'm assuming you're just aiming this grant to be at local, well, your normal LEAs. Any virtual opportunities as far as virtual schools, and normally most virtual schools are not considered unless the school district, unless that local LEA, unless that state LEA is if it comes within that LEA is considered a public school or a virtual school. But what about your private virtual platforms, educational platforms?
Yeah. That is a great question. Mr. Jordan, I'm going to put my, do you have my email?
I don't. This was just
I honestly don't know. So I'm going to put, I just sent you a direct message. Just jbishop@gseis.ucla.edu.
Got it.
But yeah, if you could email me that question, I'm going to try to figure it out. I don't think we even thought about the virtual setting, but let me talk to Travis and our other colleagues to see what they think. But
It just expands that reach, right? I think it really no pun intended.
No, hey, believe me, I've been using the pun myself for a while now. I'm like, yep.
Yeah.
Reach
expands the reach,
Yep. Yeah, well, let me pose it to the leadership team and then get back to you if that's okay.
Got it. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And sorry I missed most of it, but
hey,
virtual call.
You're here. You're here. It's all good.
Thanks a lot. I'll send that over to you.
Okay, appreciate it. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.